If people don't know the story, we'll give them the brief synopsis.
Okay, so first of all, when we first invited Jordan, I wasn't super familiar with him. I just saw kind of the phenomenon around him. And he is a doctor. He's a psychologist of some renown. And I was like, well, you know, I'd seen him on other shows. And I thought, and then someone was like, hey, you should have this guy on. And I was like, okay. You know, I was inviting everyone on at the time. And so he was on, and we didn't talk about politics or anything. We talked about, like, psychology and shit like that. So I found it really interesting. Just, you know, I thought the conversation was great. It was a really interesting conversation. I didn't know anything about his politics on, like, he's obviously transphobic, you know, and
this is the message that I always hear from you.
This guy, yeah, no. Someone asked me, do I support Jordan Peterson? No. This is, dude, he talks about, this is the most psychotic shit. He is in favor of forced monogamy because women are just getting way too much good dick, and we need to equal it for pathetic dudes who also deserve some pussy.
That's why people are responding to you in a negative way?
Why do I got to explain myself?
The people that are opposing you, they're vehemently opposed. What do you think that is?
Jordan Peterson fans canceled me.
He's really misunderstood, man. Misrepresented. People think he's like some fascist and some Nazi. He's not by any stretch of the imagination. He just says certain things that people are uncomfortable hearing, and whether you agree with him or disagree with him, that's one thing, but that's the demonization is where it gets weird. Even if you think what his idea is foolish, don't misrepresent who he is as a person.
Wait, who has... This is like straight ISIS shit. This is like as extreme as like ISIS. Do you understand how psychotic forced monogamy is? I love how his whole theory on let's say, the equality of outcome is like, fucking, affirmative action is fucking cultural Marxism. It's evil. How dare we ensure that black people who have spent their whole existence in this country, slavery, impoverished, without opportunity? It's fucking evil. We have to get rid of affirmative action. But we need equality of pussy. I'm just interested in men getting laid who suck. I'm advocating for low-value men. And then when they get pussy, she has to marry him. It's forced monogamy. She has to stay with him because he's a piece of shit and she'll leave him for someone better. We can't allow that. Dude, forced monogamy. That's literally like the Handmaid's Tale. That's straight fucking like Christian, theocratic.
It shows how actually articulate he is because you can't come up with things that he would say that make sense. I'm sure there's really intelligent people that dispute his ideas. I'm not saying that his ideas are infallible or that he's the only voice that I would listen to on these subjects, but he's a brilliant guy, and he's a very nice guy, too. And he's really misrepresented, and willfully so, a lot. And I think it's sad.
He sounds good. He can grapple with complex like ideas that we talked about, and it was a really great, captivating conversation. Everybody loved it, you know.
You're closing down even conversation. If soon as you're trying to silence this other voice, if you believe one thing and another person believes a different thing, you should probably talk about it. And the way that I know for sure there's something wrong with your argument is if what you're trying to do is you're sneakily trying to silence these voices. And again, as long as we're not talking about threats of violence and as long as we're not talking about harassment or doxing, we're just talking about conversation. You're just talking about people with differing points of view. If you want to silence differing points of view, I have to wonder about your intent. I have to wonder about whether you're going into this conversation with good faith. I have to wonder whether you've really objectively assessed whether or not your argument does hold up against scrutiny. This is also part of the problem. And when you're in an echo chamber, you often don't formulate these arguments very well. Like when you confront people about certain biased beliefs that they have, and you have an opposing belief, if they're part of a bubble, like sometimes they might not have even ever considered some of the things you have to say. And I've seen that with some of your videos.
I just don't understand, like people on the right, or even I guess people that like Jordan Peterson, they say they're the same people that defend Dave Chappelle and say trans people need to take the joke, right? trans people need to take the joke. He's joking. They're getting too offended. But what I see, and I'm just goofing on Jordan. It's not even calling him out in the way that like Chappelle is calling out trans people, you know. What I see is that they can't take a joke.
Everything's problematic. Everyone's getting canceled. It's amazing how many people did blackface.
Jordan's always like, I'm only described as right wing because they're the only ones that will talk to me.
That's the thing. They're denying the individual, and they're making everything binary. It's you and them. It's us and them. It's 1 and 0. It's not. There's no room for nuance. There's no room for the complexity that is the human race. This idea like men should shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear from white men. That's another one. I've seen that shirt. It's all nonsense. It comes from people that want compliance. This is the whole thing about woke culture is people that felt like they've been pushed around. They felt like they've been bullied. They felt like they've been maligned. They haven't been treated fairly. And now they want to turn it on you. And they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck if you're a white man. I don't give a fuck what your opinion is. Shut your fucking mouth. And they feel like they can say that because this culture emboldens people by letting people get away with nonsense, by letting people say things like that.
I'm plenty woke on my own.
Whenever someone who's woke says something that's ridiculous, it makes for great comedy.
Jordan Peterson's a man for the masses, right? Like the common man, they love him, red pill, whatever. Like his plebeian, he's talking to these men who are not, I'm just assuming, not super well read on all these complex political ideas.
What I try to do is have conversations with everyone. I try to have conversations with nutty people like Alex Jones. I try to have conversations with rational people like Sam Harris. I try to have conversations with all kinds of people.